And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players in MLS podcast. We're here with Cameron and Aaron from the Sounders Scuttelbutt Podcast to talk all things Seattle Sounders 2024. Guys, how you doing? Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, good.
Doing well, doing well.
I'll translate from his nodding.
I love it. Yeah, really excited to bring you guys on. We used to do this. We've done this. This is now season 4 that we're doing this of 5 because we didn't have a preseason when we started this, but um, you know, we used to do this on our own. Me and Connor, who's no longer here for the day at least.
Okay.
Yeah, whoa, yeah. He's no longer with us.
Probably lead in with
big podcast news, guys.
Yeah, we do about 3 to 5 of these a night, so we've already had a couple done. So when I say no longer here, I mean for the rest of the night. But we used to do this and kind of just give our own insight on things, and we realize it's better to have somebody who's got better insight than us to talk about some of the big additions, which some of them are bigger than others. The biggest losses, some breakout players, one big question still looking over this team, and a good old prediction at the end, like we like to do. But before we do any of that, of course, we got to dive into Scarf of the Week. It's our favorite segment here, and I'll send it over to Cameron first. You're on the top of my screen. What are you rocking today?
Oh yeah, so this is MLS Cup 2016 champion scarf.
Okay,
nice one side all black with the cup on it. Other side's got Sounders' old logo now, as we have a new crest. As of I guess when did it officially become official? The first practice of the season, I suppose. So it's been a month or so. This is a scarf. I didn't get this at the match, but I did get to go to that match, and so it reminds me of that trip and how it happened. And I really wasn't planning on going. It had been a thing where it just financially wasn't going to happen, but at the time, I mean, I'm still on the executive committee of the Alliance Council, which is the Sounders fan government. I'm the president now, but at the time I was the secretary. And because it was the first time the Sounders had been to the MLS Cup, as part of the team, they invited us, the leadership, to the match. And so I had to split a hotel, but I got a free ticket and I flew with the press and all the players' families from Boeing Field, which is not our airport in Seattle. It's the little side airport that I've never flown at before. So I got to have this really
where
cool
the rich people land.
Yeah, right. It's where the president lands whenever the president comes through. So I got to take off from there and go to Toronto and watch our team win in penalty kicks. And so it's a special scarf that brings on some special memories.
that is super cool. We talk about it all the time that our favorite part about the scarves is not the design, but the meaning behind the design, right? So that's definitely a good special one to keep. And I'm hoping one day my Red Bulls can give me a scarf that is about that meaningful. But as of right now, not quite yet. Aaron, what are you rocking?
Well, I see Cameron's MLS Cup scarf and I raise it. This is our Champions League scarf right there. And as you know, we won that. So we are literally and definitively the best MLS club of all time. Sorry, everybody. Mm-hmm. There goes your viewers and your listeners. We are insufferable. But yeah, no, this is actually a gift from my man Cameron right there, being El Presidente. He got a few of these. And this is probably my most beloved one because it's, I mean, how many MLS teams are going to do it? Right. So the fact that we were the first.
There's one more opportunity under the current format, and it's this year. So if it doesn't happen this year, we will be the only one ever until under that format. There'll be
under that format. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I love it. Got Champions League pin on there. But behind me, my makeshift wall, because I saw your YouTube videos and I'm in my garage, are some of my other favorite ones. But yeah, this is going to be the peak, the pinnacle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned being insufferable. I think you've got a little bit of a reason to do it. You're not just being annoying to be annoying. You're doing it for a reason.
Like Niner fans.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Love it. I'm sticking on trend with you guys. It seems. I don't know which one. It's 2019, but this is the MLS Cup 2019
good year
scarf.
Yeah, it was a great game.
Yeah.
in Seattle. We didn't have to go to Toronto. And ultimately I got to spend that game with my then girlfriend, one of my closest friends, and as well as my parents. And so, at the time, my dad was like 79, I think. So being able to, like, my dad goes to every game with me. So to be able to be there and watch the Sounders win the championship while sitting next to, or I guess I was right in front of my dad, was just such a cool experience.
Yeah, that's super cool. I just actually took my pops to our first playoff game down against Cincinnati at Red Bull Arena, and we watch games at home sometimes. I'm not home often anymore because I'm a little bit far away, but to be able to share. I mean, we lost in penalties, right? And the season ended, but to be able to share that is another good memory that I'll get to keep as well. So I can understand that as well. That's super super neat. Lots of championships, lots of cool scarves that come with them, but is 2024 going to repeat? Right now, we're looking at Brian Schmetzer remaining on the sidelines, where he will take charge of his 8th full season after taking over for Ziggy Smith in 2016. Last season, a good season overall, 2nd in the West, 7th overall. 53 points, 14 wins, 9 losses, 11 draws, and a loss to LAFC in the semifinals. How are we feeling in Seattle land entering 2024?
I think it's time to get back on pattern. I mean, here's the thing that maybe y'all don't realize. In 2015, I mean, our biggest rival is Portland, obviously, right? And in 2015, Portland won the cup. 2016, Seattle wins the cup. 2017, Seattle loses the cup. 2018, Portland loses the cup. 2019, Seattle wins the cup. 2020, Seattle loses the cup. So I'm willing to let Portland win it this year, and then we can win it. No, last year was the year. They just missed the playoffs. So that's not our fault. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is the Sounders win year in my book, even though I'm not sure that math's right. But no, this is a new team. This is a very different team. I think we're going to see some very different lineups. And right now we don't know what's going to happen because of the new additions. We don't know how they're going to mesh. We don't know what they've done. They've got younger overall, though, and it's something that needed to be done. Sadly, we had to move on from legendary midfielder Nico Lodero, but it was time. So I think the Sounders team, while there's old players still there and old stars, there's some new people that could really make a huge change. What are you thinking, Aaron?
Yeah. I'll call back to when you said, we're a younger team and we're going to see a lot of lineups. And I think that's a good thing. Last year, I think our biggest issue was depth, right? You had Christian Roldan go out the Thursday before the Portland game, which was like the cliff. I mean, we hit the season like off strong, right? Last season. And then right before the Portland game, Christian gets a concussion. And we could not replace what he brings to the field. And that Portland game, we got, ravaged. I think I entitled our episode "Splinters in Portland." So after that, it was just a struggle to get to the playoffs, and we ended up getting healthier. Christian came back, and once he came back, we were great. But not having that depth and tactical flexibility, I think, was a detriment. And also Lodero, I mean, in hindsight, you see it now, he's not on the team, and there's a reason for that. We love Lodero. He's the greatest Sounder of all time. But it was time. It was like Pete Carroll. It was time. But even though he still wants to play, it's just not going to be on this team. We are not going to be able to advance further than what we did this last season if we keep you on the team, kind of thing. So they didn't re-sign him. And we'll get into new signings, I'm sure. Obviously, you want to ask us those kind of questions because we got one for you. But it's going to be that depth and that tactical flexibility that I think it's going to make us a lot more dangerous than people probably expect. We might have a puffier chest than most just because we're the Sounders and our silverware and whatnot of late. But yeah, it's been a down couple of years, even though we were in the playoffs, and we just missed our first playoffs 2 seasons ago. So
that's the interesting thing is how lucky, how blessed are Sounders fans that the lowest low has been, we missed the playoffs by a few points.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I can echo that sentiment, right? As a Red Bull fan, our lowest is, oh man, we finished at the bottom end of the playoffs this year for the 14th year in a row, right? Like it's a nice problem to have, and it's something that you definitely would like to see more. Yeah.
A lot of us, not necessarily me, but a lot of us in Seattle were actually rooting for y'all to miss the playoffs, because that now makes you and the Red Bulls have the longest active streak, whereas 13, which we had, was tied with you for the longest active streak.
I'll tell you, I don't take joy in many teams' misfortunes, but when you guys were missed the playoffs officially that year, I did a little come on, because it meant we had a record, and not a bad one, which we have one too many of those anyway. But we just hinted on a couple things, including some additions that have been added in here. This is usually where we say, hey, who was your best addition? And then we have a little back and forth about, oh, this person's going to do well, or this person's going to do well. This one seems relatively straightforward, but I'll throw it out to you anyway for sake of consistency throughout the series. But who's the best addition for Seattle this year?
Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be the third string center back we signed. No, it's. We shored up our defense, so that was good. But I mean,
Joshua Bell's going to be good.
Yeah, we don't know where it's going to go, but you've got to talk about De La Vega. I mean, here's a guy that if he had not been injured, 2 seasons ago, hadn't hurt his knee, he'd be playing in Europe somewhere by now. And
By hurt his knee, Cameron means he tore his ACL.
Oh, was it? Is it ACL? Okay.
Yeah, he missed an entire season.
I thought it was an MCL. Whatever.
Same thing.
He hurt himself, was out, and he was, I think he was on the B team for Argentina at that point, and so he was getting national team call-ups, and that set him back to a point where he did have, from my understanding, he did have offers to go to bigger clubs, not in the United States, but this is where he chose to come, was to Seattle, and it is yet to be seen where he will play, whether that's on the left wing or the 10 or a forward. Those positions are all pretty packed, as well as right wing. So although we did lose a 10, we have Rusnak, who's a DP who despite Sounders fans being critical of him, as Aaron can attest to, just because he doesn't score goals doesn't mean he's not out there doing amazing things that are making us a better team. Aaron actually, with the scarf he has on in that match, cut a video of all of the touches he had in the Champions League final and just how important he was, like every single touch and precise key locations. And so De La Vega is the big one, but is he going to start? We don't even know that yet, because Leo Chu is killing it this spring. It's not spring training. What do we call it? Preseason. I'm in baseball mode because
pitchers and catchers
for tomorrow. But yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome to have a young 22-year-old who's already, you can tell, fitting nicely into the team with some of our younger players, and is kind of seems like a joy to be around. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it's Pedro De La Vega. Like, don't even need to make a joke about it. It's clear he's young youth DP. Beautiful hair.
Yeah.
And great smile. And he's got a badass name, Pedro De La Vega, right? So, and he's a number 10. I mean, Cameron said, does he start? I mean, he has to start.
I mean, we haven't gotten to have this discussion
because we haven't yet,
and wasn't on the podcast with y'all that one time where you're getting into this, but
so here's why the expectation, right? And now I can understand he's got a full preseason, but I can understand the acclimation to a new country. He's never left. I believe he's never left Argentina. So it's a new country, new team, obviously, new language. So maybe they give him some soft landing, but he's got a full preseason with the team in Spain. They just got back a few days ago. Actually, some big news on that. We opened up our new headquarters. So check that on the socials.
World
on
class home practice facility.
Gorgeous.
It opened officially today. There've been Sounders people there obviously before today.
Yeah. So they got home a couple days ago. All right. So I mean, it really shouldn't be an excuse unless they really formulate one that he doesn't start. But the expectations are there that we're paying $7.5 million. Yeah, that's the question.
I don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can get into it later, but my opinion is Christian Roldan goes into behind Rusnak with JP Joao Paulo,
Yeah.
and he's been there before. That's how he started with us. I think he's fantastic there. I think as he gets older, it's weird to think of Christian Roldan as getting older, but he is a late 20s. But that's between Leo Chu. I don't think Leo Chu should be on the bench. This is his year to prove it. I think from the
Okay.
yeah. So Tensio hits the bench, even though he got now the number 8.
Hey, he's number 8.
Number 8, which means it's basically a starter's number. But there'll be a rotation. Cameron said it. There's going to be different lineups out there. There's going to be reasons to have someone benched, not because of performance, but because of congestion, right? So, but I think if you're going to have a final, you have to have Leo Chu, Jordan Morris, and De La Vega on the pitch in their natural positions, which is crazy because we have Raul Ruiz, who would be on the bench behind Jordan Morris, which we saw in the playoffs.
And that's kind of from the neutral point looking at this roster build is you mentioned the flexibility. I mean, you've got players, I'm just going to read off here, right? Rui Diaz as your pure 9, but you can throw Jordan Morris up into that space. Outside across these front 3, if you're going to, let's say it's a 4-2-3-1, right? That front 3, you can put any combination of Morris, Chu, De La Vega, you mentioned Christian Roldan, you mentioned Albert Rusnak. I mean, there is just a multitude of different ways you can line this up, which is only good for as we get into these really congested parts of the season, right? So you're setting, I mean, spoiler alert, yes, Pedro De La Vega was my biggest addition as well. I didn't feel like I needed to add any more onto there, but what this sets you up for is not just a good addition in a position, but it gives you a good addition in an area of the field that is very free flowing. It's very interchangeable, and it allows you a lot more options, which makes you that much more dangerous, which is, again, from the neutral standpoint, as an Eastern Conference guy who's not, maybe going to cross paths with you once, most twice for some of us, our Eastern Conference sides. That's terrifying, but also exciting because it means that you guys are going to be very tough to game plan against, I think, because even inside the game, right? You can go ahead and put Chu on one side, De La Vega on the other, Morris in at the 9, and then all of a sudden, hey, this isn't quite working. Let's go ahead and flip flop Chu and De La Vega, right? Oh, that's not working. Morris, jump out wide. De La Vega plays a false 9, right? You're gonna have so many options in there to make this work. It's going to be scary fun to watch.
And if they
that's just the front.
Yeah, if they change formation, I mean, that's the thing is Brian Schmetzer's kind of wedded to his formation, and they aren't. Has been in the past. We had one change, we dominated the league with it, and then suddenly he's like, we're not going back to that, even though we dominated the league the entire season with it.
Cameron's got opinions.
But they have been this preseason working in different formations. They've also Jordan Morris has said he's playing up top, so he's going to be your number 9. If they're only playing one at the top, he will be the 9. And I am the type that I would actually like 3 at the back, and then you put 2 forwards and the 2 wingers with the center attacking mid. So I want all powerful.
That's downhill right there.
Yeah, and if you think about how dangerous that could be, it would be really crazy. And then in the back, I mean, no one's better than Joao Paulo. He's probably the most important player on the team. We saw that when
back of the midfield.
Yeah. I think
there might be people that don't know.
Yeah, he's a center defensive
crazy
mid.
If you don't know who he is.
So he's important. I think he normally plays a large role in the back. He stays back more than whomever is playing aside him tends to go forward a lot these days. But I think he might be the most valuable player on the Sounders. And we saw how difficult it was when he got hurt in that final against, was it Tigres? Who did we beat? I don't even remember anymore. Pumas, that's right. In the CONCACAF Champions League final. And once he was out, that's the year we missed the playoffs. So there's so much flexibility, especially if you think about it at center defensive mid, where they have 1 or 2. You have him, you have other player, Danny Leyva.
Danny Leyva.
Danny Leyva's back. Josh Atencio, of course, who was starting at that position where he was able to get ahead of. But that year we won the Champions League, we had a 16-year-old starting. And so
Obed.
just have endless riches with Obed Vargas available there, Danny Leyva back from Colorado. This is probably, especially with the backup defensive signings they've made, and then they brought in the other midfielder from Salt Lake, who was in LA for a year and then had to sit out a year at Salt Lake. I think I don't even know. I don't remember his name. We just signed him like a few days ago. This is the most depth the Sounders have ever had, which is crazy to think because that 21 team was or 22 when they were on was the best team I've ever seen by far. They just weren't always on.
Well, and having that flexibility limits the impact of some of the guys that you have lost. And again, this is another one where I usually go in and we say, oh, who's the biggest loss? And you talk about, oh, we haven't replaced this guy, haven't replaced that guy. But looking at this list, there's really only one name to go about. But even as we mentioned, Nico Ladero not being around, we just talked about all the cover that you have in there, not only across that front three, but now, you've got the rotation and the mix and match inside the central midfield there with copious amounts of, experienced players, youth players with tons of promise. I mean, you can literally plug and play any of these guys in here that I'm looking at on this roster and without a hesitation be like, yeah, we can just run out and take on anybody. I mean, I like you mentioned, this has got to be one of the deepest sides.
Yeah.
And our back line is the same back line that we're going to have that had the best defense in MLS last season.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane the turnover, and I liken Seattle sometimes to the Western Conference Philadelphia Union, where they aren't the splashiest at times when it comes to their, you've got De La Vega as their big signing, but throughout like each line, you don't have these big splashy signings. They're so consistent. They know their play style, and they just go out and get the job done. And you turn around like, oh, they're second in the West again. It's like I haven't seen them play a game in 4 weeks, but here they are, just up there.
Cameron's got a stat for you.
Yeah, our average position is second in the West over every year. If you average it out throughout the history of the Sounders since
I believe that.
And here's the thing about the Sounders is our previous GM, who is now the CEO in Atlanta, Garth Lagerwey. We certainly I won't say we miss him as a GM. I miss him as a person. I really liked Garth, and it was fun to chat with him and hang around with him quite a bit. But now we have our new Garth, who came out of University of Washington, and I talk to him frequently, and yet I can never remember his name.
Steve Weibel.
Craig Weibel.
Craig Weibel.
The wrong name.
Me too.
The thing that they know as a Seattle, the person in charge of soccer is that, and it alludes to what you said, where they don't have the flashiest players. You can't miss on a DP. You can't miss on these players. And early on, Seattle did, because honestly, we're never going to outspend either LA, Atlanta, either New York team. You might have opinions on the Red Bulls and how much they spend, but in general, and historically, the Red Bulls and
Miami,
Metro Stars, and yeah, no one's outspending Miami, and
that's not even included. That's just ridiculous.
but I will jump in and say, I think a lot of people, I'm not saying your listeners, I'm sure they're very well informed. A lot of people don't know the rules on how money works in the MLS and how everything that Miami has done has been perfectly allowed under the rules based on trades they made, GAM and TAM they brought in, all this kind of stuff. Like it's pretty wild. And people being willing to take less money to play with Messi. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think Seattle has to hit. You can't just have a player that is okay. You've got to find a player that is going to live up to the hype. Otherwise, we won't succeed because we can't spend the money to get a superstar from Europe. There's never going to be a Messi in Seattle.
We're not that kind of city anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You're telling me guys like Nelson Valdez, you're classifying as misses on DPs? That's wild.
So he would be a miss on DP, but his goal in the playoffs.
Well, that's what I mean. He came in clutch when you needed him to, right?
And those abs, though.
I love it.
For real.
But then you look the other way, Obafemi Martins, probably the greatest Sounders forward on pure numbers all time. And it could be Dempsey, but he played a false nine quite a bit with him.
Right. Dempsey was a better goal scorer overall. He tied
but
Freddie.
Oba had 0 goals in the playoffs. Sounders were never going to win a championship with Oba there. And so, I don't think that was a miss, but there, Christian Tiefert, who is the guy in Kufo who
Was he
scored
classified as a DP?
yeah, he was
Christian?
DP.
Yep. Yeah. I'm looking at it here. 2012 to 2013.
Kufo, who scored that hat trick for, was it Switzerland? Is that where he's from?
And he had the
World Cup?
first hat trick in Seattle Sounder
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. So there was quite a few misses. I don't think Freddie Ljungberg was a miss, despite his playing not live up to DP status, just
Yeah.
because he brought credibility to the team and allowed the team to get the fan base in place and get players to come play.
Very interesting. And we, as we sit here, we kind of hit on the biggest addition, the biggest loss, but we're looking here now at, we talk about all these people are going to be moved around and put in and put out, different formations, different players. Who is a player that we might not expect to be a part of that who could break out this year?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
Last year, I would have said Leo Chu.
You were right, though. He did. He ran out at the end, but his numbers and his play throughout the season showed that he was the breakout player in the Sounders, despite
this year
the haters on the Sounders fan base.
Yeah. This year, it's Reed Baker Whiting.
Ooh.
Yeah. He, from 2022 to 2023, looked like he went from middle school to senior in high school in just terms of physique and the way he played, right? We have a pretty physical league. It's gotten less brute force in the last 10 years or so, right? With the kind of quality we've been able to infuse, which I think both organically and with the way the roster, not restrictions, but the way we've been able to bring in international players that aren't just retiring. We've seen the quality of a play improve, but he stepped onto the field this last year and didn't look like a kid. And we needed him. We knew who was out both for, I think didn't he have an injury? I know he went.
Yeah. And he was gone for World, or it wasn't even AFCON, World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, World Cup. So we don't have a lot of depth at fullback, and that's probably where I'm a little concerned a little bit, is if either Alex or Nuhu, who are internationals, in terms of they go to their national team, we're going to miss them at some times. And Reed Baker Whiting stepped in and he played that position very, very well and did not look out of place or concerned that he was playing with adults. But also, I think he's 17 this year. He might be turning 18. Maybe younger than that, but I expect him to look like a senior in college this year. He's looked great in youth camps with, I think, with the USA, right? Hasn't he been into the under 19s or something like that?
Yeah. Yep. He's 18 now.
Yeah. So he plays it differently than Nuhu. Everyone who probably listens to your show knows how Nuhu plays soccer. And it's incredibly entertaining. His hands stay up here the entire time somehow, and he's still able to do things. But it's kind of awkward. But no one can get by him. I mean, he will muscle anyone off the back line, and that's what makes him a starter. But Reed Baker Whiting can play that position from the flag to flag. And that is what I'm excited to see out of him, and actually push Nuhu to either stop being a little diva sometimes, because if you watch every game of the Sounders, he has his little moments of kind of bitching for no reason. And it's usually his fault too, like putting himself out of position and then demanding a pass. And like, that's not where we're at right now, buddy. But Reed Baker Whiting is listening to every single word Schmetzer tells him, and he's following through on that. And you saw it last year. You see his growth outside of the club. And I think this is going to be the year that you might see him in next January's U.S. Men's National Team camp. If he gets the minutes that he's probably going to get this year, because he is right behind Nuhu, and he will probably see 16 starts, I think he's going to play better than Nuhu.
Interesting.
That's very. I would not have thought that. You're completely right on everything you just said. Especially since the Sounders have let Ethan Doubleair go, who was not the same position, but he was the young player that was projected with a higher ceiling than Reed Baker Whiting maybe, and then just didn't develop that way. and they just let him go. And to me, that's a depth piece lost for a future player. But wow, I would have said one of the three young center defensive mids, just because Josh Atencio grew into a man last year from still being a kid. Obed is a kid and needs to bulk up, but has more talent than probably any other player on our team. Maybe not De La Vega, but his ceiling is higher than everyone else. And Danny Leyva is just a great kid who has amazing vision. But you're right. No, it's Reed Baker Whiting.
Yeah, I think it's because of the position that he's in, and that we're going to need him, right? And I think we'll need those other three at times.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get the number of minutes. And also, Atencio won't surprise me.
Yeah,
He didn't surprise Bearhalter, so that's why he was there, right?
Yep.
And that's why he got number 8. So that's
Yeah,
not a surprise.
Yeah.
Obed Vargas, we won the Champions League with that kid on the field for 70 minutes. Like, we didn't have a goal when he got on the field when JP tore his ACL, right? So that's why it's like Leyva would surprise me. He's talented, uber talented. Went to Colorado Rapids on a loan. He's back with us, but I don't see him getting the minutes because of those other two in front of him. When I also expect Christian Roldan to be playing in the midfield as well to make room for Leo Chu and what's his face, Mr. Pelo from Argentina. So that's why I think it's Reed Baker Whiting.
You are in the minority opinion of people that think Leo Chu and De La Vega are going to be on the field at the same time. Most people think it's going to be either or.
Well, I'm Leo Chu's dad. If you listen to our podcast, I say I've said I'm his father for 2 years. So I'm always rooting for him, and I will be drunk behind Brian Schmetzer telling him what to do.
Good. I love it. A name that popped out to me while we were prepping for this, and may not be as immediate of an impact as the two that you guys have mentioned there, but Brodilio Rodriguez from the MLS Next Pro Group looked like he set that league on fire. First off, an immediate insertion into the all-name team for the 2024 MLS season. Brodilio Rodriguez, what a name!
Absolutely.
And as we mentioned, with the amount of flip-flopping and interchanging with this group, realistically, out of the players who are in those wide spots, if Morris is going to be a 9, you've got De La Vega, you've got Chu, you've got Roldan at times, and that's kind of, right now on the people who are going to make that impact, that's kind of where it is. So I wouldn't be surprised if based off of his MLS Next Pro record, he gets some rotation minutes. I'm not saying starting 25 games, but off the bench making some sort of 15-minute cameo here and there until he can maybe work his way up. But I think he might have a chance to get some of those minutes this year.
He's so good.
Is he really? That's awesome.
The question is, where is Next Pro in comparison to MLS? And it's third tier, right? It's not like going to AAA. It's like going to AA baseball, or maybe, but all the good players, I guess they do that. And he's used to playing with all the other young players, right? Because all of the players we've mentioned that could be a surprise played down there at I was gonna say Sounders 2. They've been called that for like 6 years, Tacoma Defiance. And but he's got to prove himself. And that's the thing, is Brian Schmetzer was never going to give anyone minutes just based on what they have done. It's what are they doing now in practice? How are they fitting into his system? We've seen some really talented players never get a chance because Schmetzer didn't like them. I'm assuming I think he and Craig Weibel are on the same page, though, bringing him up. He will have to go through. I mean, Rusnak can play right mid. He played a lot there last year. We'd obviously prefer him at the 10. That's his natural position. He has more of an impact there. He showed last year, once he replaced Lodero, that's where he belonged. But we have Rusnak that could play on the right. We also have Dylan Tevez, who, while comes in as a forward at UW, he was on the right side as a forward. He often can play on that right side too. He's kind of, at least in terms of seeing his minutes and how he plays when he's on the field, stagnated a little bit. So I could see Brodilio skipping ahead of him. Just he lit the Next Pro League on fire in a way that I don't think we've seen since that league has come about. Because before, you had young players playing with 30, 40, not 40 probably, with 30-year-old men, like whose careers were going down. And when you're 16, 17, 20, you can't You can't body up. That's what happened to Obed Vargas. Even though he was dominant as a 16-year-old, he broke his back because he was just getting bodied every week because he was every week. He was a kid. So Bradilio, with his position, won't have as much of an issue though. So I think that's a good choice.
Nice. I'm excited to watch him play. You know, those records. It's something you don't see, like you mentioned. You don't see them break out like that in Next Pro if they're not ready for this level, I think. So one to watch for sure. But my question is, or to move on to our final one of our final segments, we call it one big question. So what's that one thing that you guys are still unsure about, you still have a question, or what's the one thing you're going to watch as the year progresses with relation to the Seattle Sounders?
I'll let you do that first, Aaron.
It's kind of hard to nail down one, because when you lose someone like Ladero, that was the engine of your team. Now the creative engine to your team. JP is the engine of our team, and we pretty much have a similar lineup. But it's going to be weird to not have Raul Ruidiaz be a starter up top. I think it's pretty much a consensus he's not going to be the starter up there, even though he's a DP, and he seems to be content with that. He's going to get plenty of minutes, but it's going to be, I think, how Brian Schmetzer. I don't know if it'll just work right off the bat. And in fact, I mean, this league, every team, the parity is so fantastic that you can't just play your same game every single match, right? You have to adapt. And I mean, Cameron has literally thrown up jokingly, but literally said hashtag Schmetzer out in our show. He's a phenomenal coach. And, you know, he's given us the accolades in the trophy room that we couldn't expect in 2016 when he was put as interim after they fired Ziggy, right? So he gets his job, I think, until he doesn't want it anymore. But I agree with Cameron in conversations that we've had that he's not that great in-game tacticians. He doesn't maybe listen to his coaches as much, and he sticks to his guns a little too much. I don't think this is the lineup that you can do that. And 2022 showed that, I think, glaringly. And then even last year, I think he flexed a little bit more into what we need to have, and that's why you saw Ladero hit the bench and Raul Ruidiaz hit the bench, and he played the better players. You played the better players, and he did that. Now, does he follow through with that and continue that into this year? Play the players that are best for this matchup, for that position, for what we're trying to do here. You know, it's not just FIFA where you just force your 4-2-3-1 into every effing match and try to be all the time. So I think most of it is not really looking at who's on the field and what they do, but who does Schmetzer put on the field? What is his decisions? What are their subs? And are they consistent in terms of you're reading the game right? Are you reading the game right and not just sticking to what you think is comfy? That's my big question. Schmetzer.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And to further elucidate on my opinion of Brian Schmetzer, I have jokingly said Schmetzer out. I also do think he's akin to Pete Carroll, where maybe certain parts of the game have passed him by and he needs to rely on those coaches. He had that with Gonzalo Pineda. When S2, Sounders 2 was around, what is now Tacoma Defiance, I was one of 8 people with season tickets on the open side of the stadium, and I got to sit maybe 4 seats away from Brian Schmetzer as he and Gonzalo Pineda talked about tactics and what was going on in the game and had a running coach's commentary. I mean, he's obviously brilliant, but what Pineda did was he was a person that Schmetzer could trust to push on him to say, no, I know you want to start your favorite. This player is hot. Go start this person. He would listen. So when Pineda ended up leaving and going to Atlanta, he lost that. And I think last year we did see near the end of the season Freddie Juarez, who was a player. He was a coach that we signed from RSL. He was their head coach, and
their head coach.
Yeah, he came over to be our assistant coach mid-season. And I think we traded Gam or Tam or something for him.
Does it even matter? I mean, that's just
it was when Pineda left. Part of Atlanta signing Pineda was that they had to then play the release clause in RSL for him to leave as coach and come to Seattle, so he could come to Seattle. So we basically, in losing Pineda, made sure we got it. And Freddie, it took a little bit of time for him to get his voice, because he came into a situation where he was used to being a head coach and suddenly was under someone's system and probably didn't want to bruise any egos. At the end of the season, he would spend the first half last year, he'd spend the first half upstairs watching, and then would come down at halftime and give Brian his tactical changes that he would make. And we saw those starting to make a difference. I will toot my own horn and say that I regularly would tweet, the sub needs to be made. And then they'd make the sub and that person would score a goal. And I'd be like, see, I'm a genius, as I'm sitting here as an armchair quarterback knowing nothing.
Love that. That's always a nice little bump in the ego, and you call it before the announcers call it, right?
Yeah.
Cameron, you are the Alliance Council president. Give yourself some more toots.
That means I know a lot about fans and the business side of things. I'm not on field talent.
My question's kind of a rinse and repeat from my question last year about Seattle, and it's how much do these older players, the core is what I called them last season, have left in them. So last season we talked about Ladero, Ruidiaz, Fry, Paulo, all of them kind of getting to the end of their time of effectiveness, if you will. And I use that term lightly because I wasn't sure, right? It was a how much do they have left? Ladero has moved on, but still gave you plenty of it. Ruidiaz, we've seen with a drop of minutes. João Paulo, the injuries are in the past, and we hope they come back. Don't come back, excuse me.
Hey.
I choked on the word "don't" there. I'm sorry. And then Fry, of course, at 37, still fantastic as a goalkeeper. One of my favorites as a goalkeeper myself. But at some point, Father Time catches up to you. So how much do these guys have left in them? And to continue on with your point, how long does Schmetzer try and run them out before he flips the switch and says, okay, you guys are going back to the bench? He did it well with Ruidiaz already. If for whatever reason Stefan Fry isn't doing that, is he going to go to the number 2? Again, not like a tangible thing, but just something that I'm keeping an eye on if things don't go well.
Let me jump in on this one first.
Yeah, go ahead. But can I just say that I appreciate someone on the East Coast appreciating Stefan Fry.
Yeah.
That's nice.
My baller. I love Stefan Fry. One of my favorites.
When he didn't win goalie of the year last year, when he clearly deserved it, again, he said, I don't think about that stuff because I didn't win it in this other season. Was it 2016 or 19? Whatever year it was. It must have been 2019. Yeah. But he had like one of the greatest seasons, like a Nick Raimondo style, like amazing season in MLS history, and yet still didn't win it because the East Coast media doesn't watch West Coast teams play, except for unless they're playing. But
right,
unless they're Andrew.
Here's the thing. Fry looked like he was losing a step last year, at the end of the previous year, beginning of last year, and then he had probably his second best season all time. Like he just turned it on, and so goalies can be there forever. So I think the Sounders were planning to.
We know that.
Yeah,
we signed a forever dude. That guy,
Casey Keller.
Yeah.
Casey. But the Sounders were planning to move on from him. They had people ready to go, youth, and then they ended up letting the youth players go, and they have repeatedly. There is his replacement is on the team right now, but I think he's probably a couple years away. So was that a 2-year extension that Fry got? Something like that. So my guess is it's about 2 years he has left. So I'm not worried about Fry based on what we saw out of him last year. I'm also not worried about Ruidiaz because I know that he's been hurt and he's not anymore. The reason why he couldn't play last year was he's hurt. So he's not going to go out there assuming he's going to be a bench player. He's going to go out there and say, screw this. I'm going to win the starting 9 job. And if you saw his goal he made the other day against one of those teams from like Denmark or Sweden or wherever they were from, it was phenomenal. He was on the right side, it kicked up, and then it just like went under the bar on the left side of the goal. And it was one of the best goals we've ever seen, obviously in a preseason game, so it didn't matter, but he's not going to go quietly. I think he's obviously not going to start every game, but I think he's going to try to push Jordan back to the wing or make them do 2 forwards. They did put both of them up top. at least once last season, but they hadn't practiced together.
Yeah.
So it just didn't work because they were both trying to do the same thing. JP, I'm also not worried about. He hasn't seemed to have lost a step. Uh, Rui Diaz, I think, is the biggest one, though. I mean,
Yeah.
Because this is the season, right? Either he's still there and they have to make a decision, or he's not and they move on. Because you can't have him as a DP. Now they could decide to bring him down and sign another DP in a different way, but it's fascinating what Craig Weibel is doing, because if Aaron here has his way, we have 2 DPs sitting on the bench.
Yeah. I mean, I love Rui Diaz, and I agree with you. I mean, we had this conversation when we were in the playoffs last year about him being on the bench, and the reason he was there, Raul, is because nagging injuries, and I feel like half of his Instagram photos are his ankle on a plane, right? Like,
Yeah.
dude. But it wasn't. But when he was healthy, he is an assassin, right? So, and forward is another position that you can if you're not known, if your quality isn't speed and it's finishing and guile,
right? His is being the right
it.
place at the right time.
Exactly, and you don't need. You can age into that position, right? You saw Dempsey. You look at Messi right now. Yeah, he plays on the wing, but he's not. He literally touts walking, so which has its own advantages as well. But he is the player. Stephen Fry is the other one, but he's in goal. And if there is one player that I trust that knows themselves and also keeps their health up, it's Stephen Fry. That dude is a machine. Mentally, he's probably the strongest player on the team. The guy he's a specimen of a human being. He just really, and he's just a great person. He also moved and bought a house with his wife where I grew up on Bainbridge Island. So I have another affinity. I'm like,
and designed his own backyard. That's the thing, is he was never not going to resign because he designed his own backyard. Like, why?
Yeah.
Well, why would you he literally finished it like weeks before, and it's like, you're not going to leave now.
Yeah, and he probably forced Seattle in some mind games that you're going to keep me because I bought a house on Bainbridge and I've designed my backyard and yada yada. And he also commutes on a ferry. You know, I'm a lucky human being that says I commute on a ferry, or used to. But he commutes to the games on a ferry with mountains in the background. That guy's not going anywhere.
On the way to the stadium, because he just ran the ferry across from an island in the middle of the Puget Sound.
Yeah. So he's going to be there, but yeah, he's probably got a year or two left, right? Raul Rui Diaz is clearly the only really age on this. You mentioned JP, not that old for a midfielder, 32, 33. He's getting there, and yeah, he had a knee injury, but you didn't see any lost step after that when he came back from that injury. In 2023, he looked great, and I expect him to look great again. And he's arguably a team MVP. So it's really going to be Raul Rui Diaz, who I think will be healthy, and I think it's all healthy for this club to have iron sharpening iron all over the place.
Yeah, JP was my, like, to a much lesser extent in that group, right? I can throw Yamar in there as well, getting up there to 31, 32, but I'm not worried about Yamar as much as I'm worried about, Rui Diaz or Fry. Paulo's kind of just in there because he was that big four that I had imagined last season, so I just threw him in there too. But, we've talked about additions, we've talked about losses, we've talked about breakouts, we've talked about questions. Now we got to put it all together. End of the season, where is Seattle finishing in the Western Conference?
We're both going to have the same answer.
We know the answer. Where they always finish. They're going to finish second.
And they're going to win it.
I like that.
I mean, if you get to second, if you predict second, you have to predict an MLS Cup win, right? I mean, I'm sorry. East Coast, I mean, although there's been a shift, but historically East Coast has been terrible compared to the West Coast.
Yeah,
right. You'd have sub 500 teams, multiple of them make the playoffs. Now we got an expanded table, and the East Coast with obviously your team making the playoffs more than us, better streak than us, but then Philly, and obviously then you got this rise out of with the Messi rise, and you got Cincinnati. Like that's fantastic, and I love that. But if your team makes second, you're going to go to the final.
The East,
you got to predict it.
like heads and tails better than the West right now. Last year,
Yeah.
and I do think it's usually the other way around. I usually consider the West a better conference for the past decade, but no, it wasn't even close.
It's
Like
flipped.
first in the West should have been like seventh in the East. Like that's how good
It was shocking
the
to
East
watch
was.
the table throughout the season. I'm like, what is happening right now?
And I'm sure you've talked about it in all the other podcasts with Eastern Conference teams, and he doesn't come to Seattle, and we don't go there, so we're not playing him. But that Messi team in Miami, uh, I think people are delusional about people like, oh, they're old. Oh, I'm like, did you watch that team last year? All like, plus their new signings, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with when he's there for a full season, and they didn't tank the first half of the season to be able to afford him.
I'll tell you so the one thing I will say is we have made it very we've said it a lot where the East is a nightmare this year where
Yeah.
there are legitimately 7 teams that could fight for the top 4, maybe top 3 spots.
It's insane.
But what we did mention was it's very much like this, right? I can remember we started this in 2020 and it was like, I mean, the Western Conference top 4, and then whoever's in the East, maybe we're going to talk about them too. So, very, very up and down. And I think that's what makes the league really exciting, where it's not the same 5 teams that you're like, oh, they're always going to be good. It's always another one coming in, and then Seattle finishing second. But you mentioned them in second. I definitely have them as a top 4 team because of the depth and the ability to move things around. But it wouldn't shock me if they did take a step or 2 down, maybe in the 3-4 range. Just because of the maybe change, the amount of changing that might go on might throw a little bit of a wrench in the works, so to speak. That being said, that's a very like outside shot for me, but I do have them top 4. And to summarize the whole thing here, we did our Miami preview. Most of the people in Miami aren't hyped about Miami right now. They don't think those guys are going to play more than 20 games together. So that's kind of the kicker there.
I mean, the thing is, though, the goalie, Robert Taylor, I mean, they have some really good young pieces there.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I don't think people, but
And
I
by the way,
agree.
Chris Henderson, who pulls the strings for Miami, getting
Yeah.
players, he was our lead scout.
He was
Was he really? Is that where he came from?
He was the
Yeah.
reason we got Lodero. He was the
Yeah.
absolutely. So he is
He's not a Joe Schmo over there.
No.
They got some good players.
Very interesting.
I agree with you. Definitely top 4 for Sounders. The thing is, for me, I think St. Louis, I mean, they put together a good team, but there's always a little bit of a slump when you're coming in after that. And is Houston for real?
Mhm.
Because they were not the beginning of last year, and then they arguably were the best team in the MLS the second half of the season. I don't know the numbers, but the way they were playing, they were blowing out some teams.
Oh yeah. They look good. I like Vancouver too. I think Vancouver looks pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then there's the question, right? What does RSL look like? What does
LAFC.
SKC look like? Right.
Yeah, SKC and San Jose. I mean, they're always
Yeah.
on the cusp of being. I mean, SKC is usually up higher, but San Jose is always on the cusp of either being good or they're absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be good this year.
Yeah.
I actually just booked my Airbnb down in San Jose for the match for the Sounders down there because I'm going to be bringing down the Heritage Cup, which is for NASL teams. And really only Seattle and San Jose are signed on, but we're going to expand it. So we have found it, and I'm bringing it down to present them to San Jose.
Because you found it?
I didn't find it, but
it was lost.
Lost it, found it. Yeah, it's been missing for many.
I didn't know that.
8 years maybe. And so
that's funny.
Where was it? Bringing you down to the team. Sometimes when teams move from one location to another, they have to move everything, and then it appears. So, but yeah, it's coming back, and hopefully going to be expanded to any. We'll see what happens. The hope is that we're going to offer anyone who was a member of an NASL as a city the chance to be. But of course, that will be dependent on which team you're choosing when you have multiple cities. But I assume that, I don't know, do the Red Bulls consider them closer to the Cosmos than New York City FC?
I don't think any of us claim Cosmos. I think Cosmos claim themselves. We're kind of.
they're their own club
Yeah.
No, of
recently.
course. I'm talking
Yeah.
about city. Oh, that's a different Cosmos team. They just that's like
I
just
know, but
buying
technically
the.
so are we, right?
I think if you had to go like officially, I think it'd be New York City because if I remember correctly, the Cosmos played out of Long Island.
Mm,
So the New York City being properly in the city and Red Bull being a train ride over the state line, I'd assume it'd be New York City. But because we played, I think we both ran into them in U.S. Open Cup early on before the restart NASL failed. I don't think anybody kind of claims them as like a branch off. I don't think.
no, I meant more the '70s team, not the current team.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. No, of course not. I mean, we have lots of cool teams in Seattle that have nothing to do in the area that have nothing to do with the Sounders that we still support because they're in the city. Ballard FC won the
Ballard.
US
Up the bridges.
national championship last year, and West Seattle, which is closer to me and easier to get to, is having a team coming
Oh,
up
really?
here. So yeah,
Did not know that.
Junction FC, I believe it's called. So
Awesome.
Junction.
yeah, so it should
Love it.
be cool. I love, getting all these minor league soccer teams going can only be good for soccer culture in
100%.
Seattle,
And minor league names are the best names.
Yeah.
Like they really are.
I mean, you
love
look
them.
at the Trash Pandas or the Modesto Nuts in baseball. I mean, I love it.
Florence Yalls, baby. Good old
Yeah.
Florence Yalls. But we could probably sit here and list off some crazy minor league names for the next hour and a half. But I don't know if people want to hear too much about that. So I think right here is a good place to end it. Cameron, Aaron, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. I had a great time chatting with you guys.
Yeah, thank you
I appreciate it.
for having us. And if you want to hear more Sounders talk, check out Sounders Scuttlebutt. We're located on all your platforms for podcasting.
Yeah, guys. And we also want to give you, if you want to plug some links for social media too, we want to give you some time to do that. So
Aaron, do you want to pretend like we're on our show and do the outro?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we don't have James, our stadium announcer, doing it here, but if you listen to our show, we do have him say our X handle, which is at SSFC Scuttlebutt. That's primarily where we do our postings, mainly because I'm a dad of a 4-year-old. I'm 35 and my wife's pregnant. I just don't care about social media that much, and we just have a great community anyway. But you can jump on there. You can see we pin our latest episodes, and then we always link our Discord. And that's really where I enjoy actually communicating, because those are the fans that want to talk, not just that see me post something, right? So if you are a Seattle fan or just want to kind of see what's going on in Seattle, come join our Discord. But yeah, at SSFC Scuttlebutt on X/Twitter.
And you can get me at Gorilla FC is the supporter group that I run called Gorilla FC. We are about building soccer in the community. I guess there's only 2 Seattle supporter groups now, so we're the second Seattle supporter group behind our friends over in ECS that have many members. And then I talk sports, but it's politics and stuff like that. So if that's not your thing, don't follow me. But at Legal Minded Punk is my personal. I like that we just say Twitter. No one calls it X anymore.
yeah.
I don't know. I do want to say one thing,
me on
though.
Instagram too, so you can go there. That's where I post a lot of stuff.
Cameron mentioned that video about Albert Rusnak in the Champions League final. If you got 6 minutes of your life and you want to see how important he was and how good of a player he is, go Scuttlebutt Productions on YouTube, and you'll find just kind of some fun hype videos we've made over the last couple of years. But that one in particular, yeah, I am very proud of it because it took for effing ever to make, right? And I have a little highlight on him going everywhere, so it's enjoyable to watch, and there's some other fun ones in there. But
and of course, stay tuned for
Productions
that hasn't been announced yet that will be coming from Scuttlebutt Productions in the near future.
Oh yeah,
We'll
hint.
Talk about it since we haven't.
Can't say actually what it is, but
we haven't gotten the official
follow us
yet. But yeah, follow us because there's something cool coming that hopefully will end up on Netflix or Apple TV or something like that.
Ooh, that's very, very cool. You guys got to go give them a follow now. Make sure you don't miss any of that. If you guys are new here to the Designated Players and you're coming from Seattle land and you like what we do here, give us a follow as well. We do, weekly MLS takes on the biggest news. We also have a weekly segment called MLS History Retold, where we go back in time and we dive deep into fan selected moments in history that meant the most to them. So maybe not the ones that you've always glossed over in the brief, Apple TV, big moments in MLS, but the ones that meant the most to the community at the time. We dive into those and retell those stories from a research point of view.
I
and
saw
then
that. That's pretty cool that you're
Yeah.
doing that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. It's because we started up in I started following in 2010, Connor in 2018, and the podcast in 2020. So there's this whole untold part to us that we are kind of taking on secondhand, and we know how much it helped us grow as fans, and we want to be a pretty good outlet for that for other people. So if you guys enjoy that, stick around and follow us, because that's a weekly segment. We do those on Wednesdays, and then on Fridays we do some games, some fun tic-tac-toes, and some trivia stuff, just lighthearted, fun stuff to test your ball knowledge. So if you like any of that stuff, give us a follow as well, and we'll see you over on our side. Cameron, Aaron, thanks so much again for being here. Really, really enjoyed it. Guys, go check them out if you haven't already, and we'll see everybody on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.